So
Okay.
basically, the browser version has pretty much 99% of the functionality of the mobile version, and the mobile version has 99% of the functionality of the browser version. The main difference is just the sheer size of the browser version. It's just absolutely massive comparative to the 4 to 6 inch screen. You can
Hmm.
just see a lot more information at once. And like for example, if you're looking for restaurants on the mobile app, um, you can search for restaurants, and then you'll see like a tiny list on the side that kind of takes up the whole screen. Whereas on the browser version, you just have a huge list that you can scroll through while you can still see where they are located on the map. So basically, it's just screen size. The main thing that the browser version doesn't have as well or as much of is just the location data. So if you're on your phone, it'll almost always just be like in relation to where you are. Whereas on the browser version, you sometimes may need to manually say, let's pretend I'm in Boston searching for restaurants, as opposed to if you're using the app in Boston. It's kind of like, well, here are the nearest ones to you in a walking distance kind of situation.
Great. There are a couple of questions in the chat, but before you get started on those, Tim, I'm going to start recording because this is really good information that I'm sure people will want to share.
Sure.
So, okay. So record to the computer. Okay,
Recording in progress.
you're all set. So as far as the chat goes, the first question was how to stop directions.
I mean, so I have some directions pulled up right now on my desktop, and to stop directions, I would just hit the X to close directions,
Mhm.
which would stop it. If you're on your phone, you would just kind of do the same thing by hitting the X, or you can just close the app, and it will stop directions. Or, and I always have to be careful, you can just say, like, if you're using an Android phone, you can just say, hey, Google, stop directions, and it
Okay.
will stop directing you.
Marcy, does that answer your question?
Uh, yeah, I'll try it.
Okay. Um, so, and there's a question about just wanting to know more about what it can do, which you will cover in the program. And then
Hopefully.
also, and yes, hopefully. And the last is reluctant to play nice with my new car's audio system.
That's a tricky one. It kind of depends on the car. I always prefer if the audio is connected through a cable. So if the phone is plugged into the car in some manner, but sometimes Bluetooth connections can be finicky. I know
Mhm.
Subaru has in the past had some issue with phones and audio and stuff like that, but I think like Ford and Honda um, are pretty good. And some
Okay.
cars are built specifically to integrate with an Android phone, and some cars are built specifically to integrate with an iPhone. Not saying you can't integrate or you can't use the other phone type in that car. It's just
Mhm.
it's built, tested, and quote unquote certified for Apple or Google.
Okay, that makes sense. Does that help, John?
Yeah, John, if you can
Yes,
just run out to your car
yes.
right now and give it a whirl, and then
Yeah, we'll wait for you. Don't worry.
Right.
yeah. So I mean, this is Google Maps. Google Maps is fantastic for a number of different reasons. The main reason is Google spent a lot of money building out the infrastructure. Basically, back in the day, there was MapQuest, which you would go to your computer, get directions, print them out, and then pray there wasn't a detour. And then Google was like, okay, well, this is kind of cool, and we want this data. So they kind of spent the time and the money buying or mapping roads. And then they also did the whole street view thing, so people can actually see the location of something, which I find incredibly valuable. And what I mean by that is if you are looking for someone's driveway and it kind of, you know, says, all right, well, it's here. And you're like, well, I don't know, this dot really doesn't tell me if it's on the left, on the right, or if it's, 10 yards further, 10 yards behind. You can kind of drop your little buddy into the map and then you can look around, which I think is nice. And we'll show you how to do that. The other thing we're going to do here is there are some tips and kind of how to search. I do have my phone hooked up to this if anyone wants to see, closer to the end, how it looks on a phone. We can go over that. One thing to note with the phone is it will kind of reorganize my screen. So in the recording, we will have it cut just to not have that like 30-second transition of things looking weird and people's faces showing up and all that stuff. As always, we will give you a copy of the slides. Admittedly, there aren't very many slides to this. Google Maps, will come out with new features constantly. And by constant, I mean a couple new features a year, or they'll just update and make existing features a little bit better. So definitely play around with it. And things that you weren't able to do before can suddenly and surprisingly get a lot easier to do. But I personally find that the slides can be useful to go back and look at in case you were kind of wanted a quick, how to put a pin for where your car is parked. You forget how to do that. You can just go to the slides and look up the short description I have of how to do that. So we're gonna get into it. One of the first things that you can do on your phone that doesn't really work that great on your computer is location sharing. So if anyone likes to go thrifting or go use Craigslist to find, I have a neighbor who works with typewriters, so they'll end up in very interesting areas, with someone's old typewriter, and they're going to be going down country lanes, and it's like the start of a horror movie. So sometimes what they can do is they can share their location to me and basically say, hey, if you haven't heard from me in 4 hours, I'm probably dead. Please check. And we can show you at the end how to do this on the phone. But basically, there will be an icon in the top right-hand corner that is your picture or your symbol for your Google account. And you'll click on that, and then you will just click on Share Location. Once you have clicked on Share Location, you can then choose to just share your current location as a one-time thing, or you can say like, share this location for 4 hours, or you can say share this location for until I turn this off. Apart from the Craigslist thing, this is really useful in my opinion if you're going hiking. A lot of people will think that they're good hikers, myself included, and then at some point they have completely gone on autopilot and potentially lost the trail, and now they know where they know, and the cell service is really bad. And the reason why I say location sharing is nice for that is the entire route that you've done will be shared, and then it will show you going off the trail, and then it will kind of show, okay, well, you've lost service, but it will give a general direction of where people can look to find you. I think that is absolutely fantastic. And the other thing I really enjoy about location sharing is if you're going to family's house or a friend's house and they're more than 20 minutes away, they're like a couple hours away, you can share your location, and then that person can check in and be like, okay, well, they're running 20 minutes behind now, and then they can adjust when they're gonna make dinner or something like that. But again, we can go over that at the end. We have a question: how do you move home from 0.2 miles away to its actual location? Great question. We'll get to it at the end because the answer is you kind of can't do that, but you kind of can. So It's wonderful.
Ah,
The
yes,
next
these I
thing,
love.
yeah, the next thing you can do is find out where your car is. So this is another thing that you primarily will do on your mobile device, because unless you're carrying your laptop around and pulling it out to mark your location on a map as to where your car is constantly, I think mobile device is more geared towards this. And basically, when you open up Google Maps, when you're at your location, there will be a blue pin in it, basically telling you where you are. It's like a "You are here" button. You click on it, and then you click on Save Your Parking. The nice thing about this, and one of the features that have evolved over time, is you can add a photo, you can add a note. So, if you park in an airport parking lot and there's no way in hell you're going to remember where that is in a week, you can, click on the pin, you can take a photo of where your car is, and you can go in 7, lot A, row 7, in the notes. And then you get off the plane and you don't even have to think about it. You just pull up your phone, check where your car is, and it will be hopefully where you left it.
That's great.
You can use Google Maps to measure distance. This is something you can easily do on both. And this is different from kind of getting directions. So this is more for just if you want a really rough estimate of your property line, or if you want to determine a new running path or a new walking path for your dog, you can measure distance. And the way to do that on your phone is to drop a pin, click on measure distance, and click on the plus button to add a point. However, on the desktop app, you would just right click and go to measure distance, and it creates a point. So I'm going to drag it. I'm going to pretend I live on Old Dublin Road, and I just want to see, how far I can go. So I would click on another location. Okay. Click down this road a little bit, go up this road. So I'm just clicking here. So if I walked my dog, I can see the distances. I can save this. And if you want to change one of the points, you can click and drag it, and it will change the distance of everything. You can click to remove. So this is useful in some situations. Basically, if you think it'll be useful, it's useful. If you're thinking to yourself right now, I can't see why I would ever use this feature, then it's probably not that useful. But it's really nice. I find it useful, and I find it interesting to kind of see the distances just straight line between two things. And this way you don't have to, do some weird convoluted directions with, 30 different stops to kind of get a running route together, like a rough distance of how far you're going to run. So this one would be, this would be about 1.69 miles, this loop, if this was an actual road. And you can kind of judge distance based on that. And then measure distance, hit the X, and it goes away. All right. Custom lists. Now, this is something I don't think anyone really uses, mainly because it's not an immediate gratification sort of thing, but custom lists can be really powerful. So let's say you like to go out to eat once a month. Well, custom lists are a great way to remember which restaurants were good in a given location. So, sometimes you can go to Nashua, sometimes you can go to Manchester to eat, Peterborough, Keene. And if you're like me, you have absolutely no memory. So you're going to say to yourself, well, I went to Nashua that one time and I like that food. I think I had like pizza, and then it had like nice cocktails, and the dessert was really nice, but I cannot remember its name. And then I'll search pizza in Nashua, which is, not going to be helpful at all. And in that case, you can make a custom list of food that you have liked, or you can also make a list if you do a drive. I used to drive from Peterborough to around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. about 3-4 times a year. And this would have been useful because there were certain rest stops that I liked and certain rest stops that I didn't like, but I would never remember where they were until I was past the exit, or I would never remember where they were until I was like out of gas and I needed to stop anyway. And custom lists allow you to kind of save all that information. So of course you're asking, how can I save, or how can I make a custom list? Well, that would be a great question. So Peterborough Town Library, I've clicked on it. If I just delete this, search Google Maps, nothing. So if I want to make a list that includes Peterborough Town Library, I can just search library. And I can see all the surrounding libraries. Clearly, Peterborough Town Library is the best library. So I will click on it, and I will get all this information. On the left-hand side, I will see information about the Peterborough Town Library. I will see photos of the town library. One of my favorite things is you can see popular times, so you can see when it's busy, when it's not. This is really more useful for restaurants, in my opinion. And then at the bottom, you can see a bunch of things that are like what you just clicked on. So if I wanted to make a custom list, I would hit the Save button on the left-hand side, and this menu on your phone will look the exact same, except you'll see pretty much this area right here with a little bit of this, but it's primarily just going to be this. I will hit Save. It will ask me, where do you want to save it? So I can save it in my favorites, in my places I want to go to, starred places, food, which is a custom list, or I can do a new list and do reading. Places I like to read. Create. So now the Peterborough Town Library is saved in a custom list. Now, I mean, that's all well and good, but how do I actually get to my custom lists? That's a great question. All right, so I'm just going to clear this just to get back to the normal map layout. I will go to the menu. Again, this is all the same on your phone. Click on menu, click on your places. Labeled saved, I'll go to saved, reading, food. These are my 2 private lists that I've made. Click on reading, and Peterborough Town Library is right in there. So you can do these things like with food. I've just put in a restaurant that I enjoy so that it's easy for me to find directions to it if I didn't, automatically know where it is. You can also, if you are like me and you like watching food TV shows, you can, what's the guy, Guy Fieri? I saw a couple drivers dine-ins and dives, or drive-ins and dives, and some of the restaurants looked really tantalizing. So I'm like, hey, if I'm ever in New Orleans, I want to go check out this restaurant. I can add that restaurant to my list. So if I'm in New Orleans, I can be like, oh, of course, I'm going to go to my list of places I want to try, versus having absolutely no idea what the name of the restaurant is 5 years later.
That's brilliant.
And custom lists are very powerful. So you can make all sorts of custom lists. I'm just really food oriented. If you've ever met me, you probably could tell. And you can make a custom list for, hobby shops you like, or different areas of a beach that you like to go to, or, that one place where you went searching for, I cannot remember. It's not mussels on the beach. You like dig in with your feet to find them. Clams. If you have a really good clam location, you can save that just so you can find it the next year. All that sorts of things you can do with custom lists.
Okay.
So Tim, basically it's just a list of like a item, right? It's not like you can't save like a particular route or something like that specifically that you liked.
No, you can't really save a particular route. There are ways to do that, but I think it's like add-ons to Google Maps where you can add in like a running app and kind of create and save routes. I know Garmin has one. So you can, if you liked a particular bike path or you liked a particular, loop on the bike path, I should say, you can create, a biking map and save that.
Okay, but is there an option too that if you don't want to go the standard highway route, is there an option to check out the scenic route without having a traffic light every other block?
That is actually a really good question. It's something I've hoped for a long time, and I could be wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, Google has not added in traffic lights into things you can select when planning a route. Because as we all know, sometimes a 1 hour drive can be 5 minutes faster going this particular direction, but that direction that's 5 minutes faster has 10 traffic lights and the other direction only has 2. And probably the traffic lights are gonna cause my speed to go down substantially. Unfortunately, I don't believe there's currently a way to add traffic lights. It does kind of take that into consideration with the proposed time of departure, time of arrival kind of situation, because it measures how fast cars have traveled along that route. So it kind of bakes in stoplights, but there's currently, I don't believe there's any way to search for that specifically. But we'll go over, what you can and can't search for along your route.
Thank you.
And the main thing for Google Maps is planning ahead. If you're like me and you've ever tried to go to an airport, it says, well, you want to be at the airport, what is it now, 1 or 2 hours ahead of time for, domestic is 1 and international is 2 or something. And you're like, okay, well, it takes me an hour to get to Logan, but you completely forgot that you're leaving and it's going to be rush hour, so it's really going to take you 3 hours. And all of a sudden you're, running down there trying to get to your plane before it leaves in 10 minutes. So that's bad. So what you can do with Google Maps is you can plan ahead. So if I am going to drive from Peterborough, New Hampshire, directions, switch. I'm going to try to get to Logan Airport. Let's be specific. I know I'm going to Terminal E. This is going to take an hour and 32 minutes if I leave right now. Okay, that's fair enough. But what if I, don't want to use tolls? Well, options. I want to avoid tolls. Okay, all of a sudden my time went up a little bit. That's fine. If I go to menu, go to traffic, I now can see, you can kind of see how the map has all these lines in it now. Green is good. Green means currently the road is not heavily trafficked. Red is what you don't want to see. But basically right now on the bottom of my screen, and I'm sorry if it's kind of difficult to see, but at the bottom there's a little box that says live traffic. Now, if I click on that, I can choose typical traffic. And I want to know typical traffic for Friday at around 8 a.m. And then I'll be able to see the traffic around 8 a.m. I can see, there's a little bit more red, all that stuff. Now where it gets really interesting is if I go back up to the left-hand side, there's a little button that says leave now. If I click on that, I get a couple options. I can say, well, actually, I'm going to be leaving at 5 p.m. no matter what. And it will, change the time it thinks it's going to take. The other thing you can do is you can say arrive by. So I'm going to click arrive by. My flight is for Friday, and my flight leaves at, let's say it leaves at 11:30 a.m. It will tell me a lot of important information. It will say, typically on a Friday at 11:30, if you were to leave from Peterborough and go to Logan Terminal E, it would take you between 1 hour and 30 minutes and 2 hours and 20 minutes. That is a huge time discrepancy, in my opinion. So I basically know, well, it may take me only an hour and a half, or it could take me almost 2.5 hours. It could take me an hour more than I think it should. So Google would then say, well, we recommend leaving around 9:10 a.m. So I know if I want to get to the terminal by 11:30, Google says to leave at 9:10. So I would probably try to leave a little bit before 9 just to be safe. Does anyone have any questions on kind of how to set time? And while you're collecting your thoughts, I'll say one additional thing. One thing that's nice that you can also do is send directions to your phone. So basically you can do all of this on your big, screened laptop or desktop computer. You can even do the arrive by, and you can then send the directions to your phone. And then when you're at your phone and you want to, start driving at 9, you'll just click on the link and it will automatically fill in all the information for you. So you don't have to retype in, what terminal was it again, kind of thing. It'll just automatically have all that information saved for you.
So Tim, when you send directions to your phone, I know it gives you options, including a text message or email. Do you have a preference? I mean, I sent some to my Google Pixel and just to not as a text, but just as a Google Pixel, and they showed up immediately, but then I wasn't going to use them for an hour or so and they disappeared on me.
Oh, okay. So I'll tell you about my experience.
Mhm.
What's nice is I personally have 3 options. The first option is send directly to my phone. The second option is send it to my email. And the third option is to text it to me. I prefer to send it directly to my phone. In an experience that has been not like Mary's, my experience with sending, so your mileage may vary. My experience with sending it directly to my phone has been great, because if I send this as is to my phone would actually remind me at like 8:30. It would start saying like, hey, don't you want to start getting ready for this trip? Remember, you need to leave in 40 minutes to make your destination on time. The other thing that's nice about this, partially about sending directly to your phone, but also in general, is if you send it directly to your phone, it will also know the route that you're going to take. And if it has any updated times, it will then adjust when you should leave. So for example, if currently somewhere on US 3, there's a traffic accident that somehow, or a road closure that somehow got added to the total, but Thursday rolls around and Google knows that there's no longer a traffic impediment there, it will then update your time and actually tell you, oh, turns out you can leave 10 minutes later. Or it will say, hey, there's been a really bad crash that you didn't know about on, Tuesday because you're not clairvoyant, and you should actually leave a little bit earlier than you had planned. And if I send it to my phone will tell me that without me having to actually open up the Google Map app and check, which I think is just brilliant. The other thing you can do, of course, is you can send it, via email, and then you can just forward it to the other people who are going to be taking the trip with you, which can be useful. I said before that I used to travel to Pennsylvania a lot. So if I go from Peterborough to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, you can see this is a very long drive. One of the cool things Google has is if it's a long drive, it will oftentimes say like, hey, I don't know if you can see that very well, but it'll actually say, hey, if you don't want to do this 9-hour and 10-minute to 11-hour and 20-minute long drive, you can buy a flight that takes an hour and 40 minutes and is currently $160. If you click on this, it will then take you to a page where you can get the buy the plane ticket, which I think is cool. But one of the things you can do on a drive that's this long is once you're in the drive, if I go to leave now, once you're in the drive, they've added this where at the top, and this is the same on your phone, you can see hotels, gas, and rest stops. And one of the nice things about this is it will show you, if you want to plan ahead, it will show you all of those that are on the route. So you don't have to go, you don't see an exit sign that says there's a Mobil gas station. You take that exit. It turns out it's actually 5 miles away on like this dirt road that it takes you 10 minutes to get to, and you've actually lost time. You can just click on gas or rest stop, and it will show you all of the ones that are along your route, like really close on the route. And if it turns out you really, really like rest area WB, you can click on it and you can save it. So I like this one in the future. And the other thing is gas. So you can easily tell where the gas stations are directly on the route. The other thing you can do is while you're driving, you can basically say like, hey, where's a gas station along my route? And that way you don't have to go backwards to get to a gas station. It'll kind of only show you ones that are, in the direction which you're already going.
Tim, when you're saving this, it's different than a custom list though, right? You just, like, what you just
Yes.
said about.
So a custom list is for saving things that you like, or I guess you could do a list of things you don't like so you avoid them. But a custom list is basically locations that you have an interest in, whereas this hotels, gas, and rest stops and more are kind of agnostic and just depend on your route. So they're just kind of more of a convenience thing.
So when you save this, it's just like one of the routes. I guess I'm asking where are you saving this?
I'm not saving this. I'm trying to currently, I'm planning a trip from Peterborough to Pittsburgh, and I just
Right.
want to see, where the rest stops are along the way, because I'm going to be bringing, a dog or something, and I know I need a rest stop every, 2 hours. So if I see this is the last rest stop on the route for a while, I know I need to stop here before
Okay, so you're
doing the
not
rest.
saving like a particular rest area that you like.
No, but you can with the custom list.
Thank you.
Yep. And then if you wanted to save this result, or you wanted to plan ahead really like extensively, you could just add stops. And then whenever you click on that item, whenever you start driving using, the sent directions to your phone, it will say, hey, you have a rest stop, coming up in 20 miles or 20 minutes kind of thing, which is nice. If you're the type of person that plans that far ahead. I'm personally not, but I can see the value in it.
So Tim, can you show them how, for example, if you looked at this route and then a friend in Binghamton asked you to come stop by for coffee, how you would add that stop?
A friend in,
It's just north of Scranton. I'm looking at your map.
You'd
So-
think I would actually know where stuff is since I've done this. All right, so if I go
anywhere,
here,
it's just, yeah.
oh, there's a flash flood warning. That's nice. So if I know along my route, I'm actually going to pick someone up in Factoryville, because I just love that name. I can just click on and I know, okay, Scranton, yep. I can just drag it and say, I need to go past Factoryville. I can just click and drag on the map to change a waypoint. And then you can kind of see that it said, okay, well, instead of taking 81 down to 80, now I'm just going to take 180 this way. So I can, have this detour to pick someone up. The other thing that's really nice about this is if you know that there's one road that you absolutely hate, you don't care if traffic says it's good, you just want to avoid that road. If I really hate, if I really hate Hartford, I just know I don't want to go through Hartford. I can say, okay, Hartford, no. And I can just drag it so I no longer am going through Hartford.
Okay.
And yeah, it's added a little bit of time, but now I don't have to go through Hartford. So decisions. One thing that you may or may not experience sometime in your life is sometimes you'll actually find a route where it tells you to get on a ferry, which I find is hilarious. Like if you're going from like Plainfield, Connecticut to Sag Harbor, it may say, hey, go to New London and hop on a ferry. And if you don't want to do that, you just go to route options and say, don't use a ferry, please. The other important thing to note is if you're searching various things at the same time, remember to check your options because it'll be saved for as long as you're doing a search. So if you hit like avoid highways because you want to take the scenic route, and you were searching for like an hour drive, and then you start searching from Peterborough all the way to Pittsburgh, and you're like, why the hell is it telling me it's going to take over 12 hours? And why is it not taking me through 81? You can go to route options and go, oh, it's because I said avoid highways. And you can turn that off and then get the route back down to just under 10 hours. One question sometimes people ask is, I have my iPhone, right? I have Apple Maps. I have Waze. Why should I use Google Maps? And the main reason why you would want to use Google Maps is one, Google owns Waze, so it's essentially the same thing. If you really love the traffic data in Waze, where as you're driving along, it will sometimes say, hey, you might want to take this exit because up ahead is really, really bad traffic. Google will also do that because it's using the same algorithm. But the main reason why Google's nice is it kind of does more things in general. So, the gas station thing where you want a gas station along your route, just click on gas and it will tell you gas stations that are along the route. It also has a much more robust way to find food, things like that. But the biggest thing, in my opinion, and I kind of talked about this earlier, is let's say I have a friend who lives, somewhere along this road, West Hollis Street. What I can do is I can go to the bottom right. There's a little dude. You can probably see him dangling there. And there's a little green area. I can just drop him. And now I can see exactly what this intersection looks like. So I can say, okay, here's the house. So instead of like a weird, it's roughly, it's basically at this intersection, I can see, okay, it is directly here. I want to make sure after this light, I immediately turn right into here. and you can kind of go up and down the road to kind of get familiar with the surroundings, which I find really useful because I'm a very visual person. So Street View, I think, is wonderful. It lets you kind of know what to look for when you're driving. I know, in some parts of like northern New Hampshire, they're like, okay, at the big tree, take a right, in like half a mile. Well, you can actually look at the route and kind of walk through it and say, okay, well, that's probably the big tree they're talking about. So you know what direction to turn. We have a question in chat as to, the ability of Google to find particular types of food. Yes, any type of food. Vegan food. I want vegan food. And this will show me restaurants with vegan options. If I want Chinese food, it will now tell me places where Chinese food is an option. One of the really nice things is if I'm looking for a nice dining experience, about $3 signs, I can then say $3 signs, and I can see the locations that are kind of expensive but not overly expensive. Or if I just want something real cheap, because honestly, really cheap Chinese food is either the best Chinese food you ever had, or you hope you hadn't been born that night. I can go with the $1 sign Chinese food with, let's say, at least a 4.0 rating. And now I can see Chinese food locations that are both 4-star plus and really cheap.
Can you show again how you did Street View? It's so small at the
Sure.
bottom. It's hard to see.
Yeah. So let's say, okay, so I like MT Local's kitchen and wine bar, let's say, and I want to know, what does it look like? Because honestly, Nashua, I was born in Kentucky, but I lived a long time in Peterborough, so I'm not used to all these big city roads like we have in Nashua. So I'm just gonna grab my little buddy from the bottom right and drag him over to around the correct location. And now I'm on a street. So I can see the street. And I know, okay, I think MT Locals is this direction. Maybe not. Yep. So I can see right here. I'm not sure if you can see it on your screen. Again, potentially small, but there is a little cocktail icon, which tells me that this is a food establishment that serves alcohol. And I can hover over it and see MT Locals Kitchen and Wine Bar. So I can kind of click up next to it and see, okay, this is what MT Locals looks like. So one of the nice things I also noticed is there's a lot of on-street parking. So I know, okay, maybe I can get on-street parking here. So I know to look out for on-street parking, which is nice. But if I don't have on-street parking, it will also give me the option, if I get out of Street View, to search for a parking location nearby. But now I know exactly what MT Locals looks like. So I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be that person going 10 miles an hour looking at both the right and the left-hand side trying to find the restaurant as I'm driving, because I know exactly where I'm going and I know what it looks like.
So does everyone see the arrow on the screen that Tim's pushing that brings the view direct? I mean, it moves it forward. Plus there's a little compass at the bottom left, which will allow you to rotate the image, which is sort of amazing.
Basically, you drag the person across to where you roughly think the area is that you want the street view, and once you drop the person there, the street view will emerge.
Exactly. So MT Locals Kitchen and Wine Bar, I'd in this scenario again, I just kind of zoom in a little bit. This is where I want to go. In the bottom right, there is a little yellow person icon. Grab it. And then just, there's a little you should be able to see it. I'm pointing at my screen like a fool, but there's a little green circle underneath the dude, and that's where he's
Yes.
going to land. And then I'll just drop him around the area and then look around, empty local, right there.
So everybody go to MT Local and tell them Tim sent you.
Yes, this was a sponsored post. No, my wife's parents came up, and that's one of the places where we went when they were visiting. So it's in the back of my mind.
Is there something comparable to reviewing like TripAdvisor for restaurants for roads and which ones to avoid?
I mean, basically that's the star system. But before I go into the star system, I believe someone asked how did I drop the little guy for Street View? Okay,
Yeah.
So that's how I drop the little guy. In the top left, there will be a little back button, and that's how I exit Street View. So if I'm looking for restaurants, so I'll just go to the top bar and say I'm hungry. It will show me the restaurants, and I see that there's a decent selection in Nashua. So what I can do is I can do it by I can search by a bunch of criteria right now. If I am, vegan or vegetarian, or I really want fish, I can put in the top, I want fish, and it will, kind of give me that more specific search result. I can put in vegan, it'll give me that specific search result, but we're going to go with the really general, just I'm hungry, Google, please help me. So price. I am looking for something that isn't that expensive, but I'm willing to go up to a $2 sign. Rating, I don't want to go lower than 3 just because, I'm classy. So I'm going to say at least 3.5. Cuisine type, I have a hankering for pretty much anything. So any cuisine. And hours, I want something that is open now. Because sometimes if you're searching late at night, one thing people forget is to check the hours on a restaurant. So if you're looking for, a non-bar type restaurant and you're looking to eat and it's like 6:50, whenever you search, it may say it's open, but it actually closes at 7:30, and you're not going to have a good experience because one, they may let you in, but then you're going to have all the wait staff kind of looking at you as you're ordering your main course an hour after, or like half an hour after they're officially closed. But they're professionals, they'll be really nice about it. But secretly in the back of your head, if you've ever worked at a restaurant, it's not the kind of person I want to be. So California burritos, that sounds good. Dine in, take out, no delivery, click. I'll now see it on the map. If you notice, it is a little bit bigger. It's pure red compared to, Crane Restaurant or Martha's Exchange. I can see dine in, check mark, take out, check mark, delivery X. So this does not offer delivery. Now I can go down, I can see the street address. I can see that it's open now. It is open from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. I can click on the arrow to the right of that, and I can see its operating hours for every day of the week. And then, health and safety. This is kind of a thing that didn't really get used until COVID, but it will basically tell you, you have to wear a mask if you're in this restaurant. Wait staff will have a mask and they disinfect the tables between visits. It will then give you access to the website, the phone number, all that stuff. But my absolute favorite thing is down here where it's popular times. So if I'm actually planning to go to this place on Wednesday, I can see, okay, well, if I want to go there for dinner, 6 to 8 is pretty busy. So maybe I'd want to have like a little bit of an early dinner at like 5:30 to kind of skip the really high popular times, which I really like. And then if we scroll down a little bit further, and you'll notice pretty much half of this has been about food because I didn't have lunch. If I scroll down further, I can then see the photos. So people take photos of the food. I can also see the reviews, and they'll give you like little reviews. And then there are more like specific reviews. So if you're looking for, dish recommendations of what to get there, you can kind of read the reviews, and some people say this is the best, chicken burrito I've ever had in my entire life. And then you can go there and you're like, okay, well, I want the chicken burrito. But lots of options. And then I'll just click the X to go back to the default menu. So this has taken a little bit longer than I expected. I'm officially going to open the floor for questions because unofficially we've been doing that for about half an hour, but I'm going to officially say it's question time for Google Maps.
So I wanted to know about ranking certain highways, like you would, avoid this highway at all costs, and even though it'll save you like half hour. There's nothing like that.
No, so there isn't a way, at least that I know of, to basically say under no circumstance do I ever want to be on 3. I want to stay on 101 till I die. I don't think there's a way to manually say just ignore Highway 3 at all times. But what you do is you'll do the directions, and then you can manually move the line. So Concord, Massachusetts, directions. So you would just manually move this line away from where you wanted to avoid, which is really frustrating if you're trying to avoid Route 3, which is like everywhere in the search criteria I just selected. But yeah, so you'd basically just have to move off of Route 3 if you didn't want to use it. I also chose an awful location because Concord, pretty much if you're going south, you're going down 93. So that was silly of me. But yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Tim?
And the other thing is, did anyone want to see any of the like parking location stuff on the phone, or was my verbal description, a-okay?
Well, there's a question in chat. Let's see. So sometimes Google Maps on the cell phone does not say the directions out loud. I've checked for volume and muting.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've checked for your phone being muted and the volume on, make sure that you're checking not just for voice being muted, but for your applications being muted. What I mean by that is there are 2 separate volumes for app volume and phone volume. So make sure both of those are on. The other thing is make sure that you have notifications turned on for the program you're using for directions. Because if you're hiding those notifications, sometimes that can also include the verbal directions that it'll give you. On Android, it's slightly different than on iPhone, but those general directions should kind of work for both.
So has anyone experienced getting a pop-up when you're near someplace? Like every time I go to the temporary library, I get Google asks me to rate the Pearl restaurant. Have people experienced that before? Just had a pop-up asking about this place and can you answer questions? It's sort of interesting, and that's how they're collecting a lot of that information.
Yeah, it'll say things like, you know, your opinions are valuable. Please rate blah blah blah. We just saw you were in Market Basket. How was your experience? Yeah, it's Market Basket. You know how what they had stuff like what's the experience I'm supposed to be? You know, the life-changing experience I'm explaining in this little paragraph. One thing I just did, and I completely missed talking about it, is there is more to it than Street View. So this is map view. Um, this is kind of where you can see the roads and stuff. But if I click on the bottom left where it says satellite, I can kind of see how green it is. So one, it's kind of nice that it's so green. But two, you can kind of go in and you're like, oh, that's my car sometimes, which is cool. But I find this useful for if you want to plan a scenic route. You can make sure that there are trees along it as opposed to buildings or factories or something like that. Plus, this is just fun to play around with, where you can kind of see your neighborhood. You're like, oh, I live here. I live on Maple Ave. Here's what the houses look like. And they're all numbered 76, 58, 11. It's just fun.
Yeah.
Eye in the sky.
So in chat, there's a question about who's sharing in my shared location.
So if you share your location, you'll have options to basically send it to somebody via text message, send it to somebody via email. So essentially anyone who has that link. Also, if you have Google Maps associated with your Google account, you can send it to your Google contacts. And if you do that, then only the Google contact would have access to your location. And remember, if you share your location, you'll have a lot of options, whereas you can send the location right now and they just get where you're located at that specific point in time, or you can say share my location for the next hour, 2 hours, 10 hours, or you can say share my location until I turn off share my location. So I think the example I did earlier was hiking. The other one I really, really highly recommend for this is if you do any sort of ocean water kayaking or kayaking in general, river rafting, it's always nice. It's a little peace of mind to kind of share your location. And, you know, if somebody is actually checking in on you, you know, so you're supposed to give a plan. So you're supposed to say like, hey, I'm going to be, you know, at this lake and I'm going to be, you know, going over to this area at like 7 p.m. And if the person checks at 9 p.m. and your phone says you're in the middle of the lake, they'll know that something's probably wrong. So sharing location to me is more of a safety thing.
It's great. Oh, and there's a question, can I use this to let my children know I've arrived home safely after a visit?
Yes, I mean, nothing beats a handwritten letter, right? But that's not quick. So after that, nothing beats a phone call, but I don't like talking on the phone. After that, text message is good. But realistically, my favorite is if I'm doing a long journey, I'll just share it with the person where I just left their house or the person where I'm going to their house. And that way they just kind of know where I am the entire trip. So they can see, you know, okay, the trip is supposed to take 8 hours. I'm going to check at 8 hours. Okay, they're 10 minutes from their house. Good, they made it. And you can stop worrying, kind of thing. So yeah, you can definitely let anyone know that you've arrived home with this.
So anybody have more questions for Tim? How hard would it be, Tim, to switch to your phone just to show them what it's going to look like on the phone?
Not that difficult. So if I go to Google Maps, we can kind of see that, you know, one, you can tell my phone's plugged in, so that's good. So one thing I like to do is the whole, the first thing I like to do is the where am I parked? We can kind of see that there's a little blue dot. if I click on the little blue dot, it will give me a couple options. One is share your location. The second is set as parking location. And I'll just set it as parking so I know that I have parked there, and then I can go find that later. If I want to stop the parking, it's not letting me, but I can just click on it and cancel it, which I'll apparently do afterwards. The other thing is if dropped pin. So if I'm searching for how to get to Pittsburgh, PA, directions, choose starting point, Nashua. Start.
Continue on US 3 South for 14 miles.
You're
I
welcome.
love that voice.
Oh yeah. Lots of different options. Exit. Back. Unfortunately, I don't have a Google account associated on my, this is my work phone, in case you didn't know. But I don't have a Google account associated, but you can see at the very top right, there's the little person icon. I click on that. I would click on location sharing, and then it would give me the option to share my location. And it'll ask me to sign in. But as soon as you hit share location, it will then give you the option of who do you want to share the location to, for how long, and then you would just hit share and you'd be good to go. So, I mean, it is fairly full featured. If I wanted to find restaurants again, I'd click on restaurants. You can kind of see how much different the information is. I don't have as much screen real estate to look at where they're actually located when I'm looking at the restaurants. But I can click on one that looks good, Louie Louie, hit directions, and it will give me directions.
That's great. So, anything else we need to show people on the phone?
I mean, it's basically what people want to see on the phone. The other thing, and I apologize for clicking past it really quickly, but whenever one of the pop-ups that happened whenever I started directions is a pop-up asked me if I wanted to let Google Maps send me notifications. If I were to hit no to that, it wouldn't give me driving directions.
And if you did directions, can you show them the mute and the various options that you have once you have a route on your phone?
Oh, okay.
Because that might be helpful.
Let's go to Peterborough.
You get the keyboard.
Let's go to McDowell Colony, directions. So right now it's giving me the ability to choose which direction I want to go, what route I want to take. I'll take the scenic route that's mostly in Massachusetts. If I hit steps, it will give me that, old school MapQuest thing where it says, head 100 feet, turn right, turn left, turn right, keep right, which is kind of cool. So what did you want me to show again, Mary?
So
Sorry.
just, no, go ahead, hit start and then show
Head
them
south toward Brook Village Road.
the unmuted. You have a couple of options if you hit that.
Yep. So alerts only. I'm not 100% sure what it counts as alerts because I've never used that option. I'm either muted or unmuted. The other thing to note is if I go to the volume buttons on my phone, this will also affect how much sound I'm getting whenever it's sending me an alert. But then I would just start driving.
That's great.
You can also like verbally say things. Yes. I have to hit allow to everything now. I want a gas station. Apparently it doesn't like me.
I can see the little,
Oh, maybe it doesn't like that Zoom is also using a
probably.
microphone. But you can just click on if you're driving along and this is like in your holder at the front of your car, you can just hit that and just say, I want to find a restaurant, or I need a gas station, stuff like that.
Great. Well, thank you. You've shown us an awful lot.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay,
Thank
so he's,
everyone who stuck through.
yeah, and he is doing tech drop-in tomorrow from 12 to 1. The Zoom link is on the website, so feel free to stop by and ask him specific questions if you think of anything this afternoon. But thank you very much. And in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing nature apps, sort of how to go explore the world using and captures bird sounds and identify plants and do all sorts of fun things. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.